billing tab has several sections for us to go over. We start out on the standard billing tab. This allows us to choose our default invoice template for this client. So when you're creating a bill and you see that invoice template in there, and yes, you can change it at that time, but this is the one that shows up automatically. You're choosing it here for this client. Now in the firm properties over here under Tools, if you click on Firm Properties, here under Invoicing, you have the option to choose a template in here for invoices. This is the template that you want to use across the board, meaning you want that to be the standard unless you change it specifically for each client like we're doing for CyberCore Security. So back here on the Billing tab, let's pretend that's the case with this template. Over in Firm Properties, the I3E template was set up across the board for all your clients, and that's why it's showing up in here right now. But you know that with this specific client, that's not the template that you want to use. So you can click the drop down and choose from our long list of invoices in here and find the one that makes the most sense for this client. Now I should also mention that over here under Tools, Templates is where you would find the invoice templates in there, and you can actually download and check those out in this area here to find the one that you like the most. But if you already know which one you like, you can choose that in here. And once you choose one in here, then anytime that you go to create an invoice for CyberCore Security, that's the one that would show up in there by default. You can also set up paragraphs that you want to show up every time you use that template for CyberCore Security. To do that, you would click here in the paragraphs section, and this should look familiar to you, especially if you've watched any of the billing videos like the quick bill, detail bill. This is where you're choosing the wording for your invoice. So you have an option to click Add New and do it from scratch, putting in the description and bringing it down. That's one way you can do it. I like using the library of paragraphs because these are all the pre-written wording for your invoices. So your library of paragraphs is literally a library of the paragraphs that you've put in prior to that you can just choose to add to your invoice. So you can see I have a long list of them. They're all numbered. And I have the option here to either preserve the format, so you see how it's like one on top of the other, or list form, or if I like it more with wrap text, I can do that, and then you can see it just kind of wraps the text in the paragraph instead of having it as kind of like bullet points, sort of. I like mine how it was originally set, and let's say that I like paragraphs, let's go down, I like 210 for this client, so I would bring it down, and it shows up down here at the bottom. It's got the paragraph number, the description in here, and you'll notice there's also the copy option next to each of these. So let's say that this is the paragraph that I wanted, but I also like, let's say 230. Instead of bringing it down as a separate line, I can just copy 230 and it shows up there as wording along with the previous one. I can just throw a period in here and it just adds it as like another sentence down here in the description. If I like what I have there, I can click Save, and that would display on invoices for CyberCore Security going forward. I'm going to X out of this so I can show you something else. If you don't want to create your bills manually and you want to create your bills automatically each month, then you can click on Automatic Billing. Here you can also change your template, and you can put in the amount of the invoice, since you probably have some kind of agreed upon amount with this client. So let's say that you agreed they'll pay $800 a month for the work you do for them. Now you can see there's a red banner here that says make sure the amount is more than 0 and matches the paragraph's amount. This won't disappear until we add some paragraphs and make sure that it matches this $800 amount. So I'm going to click here again to add paragraphs, and same as before, I can add new, or I can use the library of paragraphs. First of all, you'll notice that that $800 is showing here in the amount and the chargeable amount, and it's also over here under remaining. If I click on library of paragraphs, let's say that for this one, I actually like, let's go with the same one, 210, but let's say I also like paragraph 400. So I'll bring that one down. So since I know that I need to equal the amount here, it's talking about here. So let's say, since there's only two of these, I'll just break it down evenly and put $400. You can see the amount remaining came down to 400. So I'll also do 400 for this one. And you can see the amount remaining now is 0. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and you'll see that when I do, that banner disappeared. Now, if this was part of an engagement, I can choose it here. I also need to put in the frequency. I said that I wanted to do this monthly. It'll be automatic billing monthly for CyberCore Security, but you can see that I also have options for bi-weekly, quarterly, and annually. I'll leave mine as monthly. So now we've set up in the Client Properties Billing tab that we want to create an invoice each month for $800 using the template that we have in there with the paragraphs that we added. But how do we generate this invoice each month and assign an invoice number to it? We do that by coming over here to Tools, and your first option will be Auto Bill. If you click in there, there's an actual video in there that explains all about Auto Bill, so I'm not going to go through that process, but just know that that's where you would go to actually generate that invoice each month. We still have other things to cover here on the Billing tab. Let's come down to where it says Statements. Just like with the invoice template, if there's a statement template that you like to use for this client, you can choose that in here. Zero balance statement templates. This is used if you have a client who wants to see that they don't owe you anything. You can choose that template in here. And then you have this do not send statements. It's a checkbox. Well, there are some clients you just don't need to send reminders to. If that's the case with this client, then click here. Then we have our finance charge section. We have finance charge after. This field is for you to put in the amount of days after an invoice is created for finance charges to start being applied to this client. If you don't want to charge finance charges to this client at all, you can enter a 0 in here. Let's take a look at the Rates tab now. For the discount field, just enter the amount of the discount, if any, that your firm is providing this client. So you'd enter 10 for 10%, 20 for 20%, and so on. This discount will be automatically applied to the client's amount in the time entry screen. For instance, imagine CyberCore Security has a discount rate of 10%. When you enter time for CyberCore Security on the time entry screen, the amount showing will be 10% less than the rate level indicated by the work code. And then the flat rate field is a place for a flat fee feature. Much like the discount field, whatever rate entered here will override the hourly rate entered for this client. So regardless of employee or work code, for instance, if you have a client that the firm agreed would do all of their accounting for a fixed fee of $50 per hour, this would be where that $50 is entered. And then down here at the bottom is basically your value added tax or VAT tax area. If your jurisdiction requires any kind of tax, contact TPS for an explanation of how these 3 levels are calculated. And once you've filled all of this out, as always, just make sure that you click Save Changes. And that's about it for the Billing tab.